met you a few years ago in an entrepreneurship class training, and I was so impressed with your insistence and your persistence with helping small business community. And that's part of the reason why I started my business. And here we are just a few years later, and I get to interview you now.
That is awesome. I remember that day. So I'm glad I stayed in your mind and that you reached back out to me. So I appreciate it.
Well, I will let you get started with your presentation, Tarsha.
Absolutely. So first, thank you again for having me here and part of the conference. The Live Fund Women's Business Center, we are a nonprofit organization. We're headquartered in Texas, and I know there's people from all over the country on this call, but we do serve small business owners across the state of Texas, as well as the southeast region of the United States. So if you're in Alabama, Georgia, Arkansas, some of those areas we have a presence in as well as Tennessee as well. So we help entrepreneurs with limited access to capital have a chance to live their dreams through entrepreneurship. And so next, I would like to just go over with you on the next slide the types of services that we offer before we get into the content. So we provide our clients with no cost, one-on-one business coaching and consultation. We have a variety of workshops and seminars that we put on. Of course, they're all virtual. Leading up to, as I think since last year, as of today, we've had about 82 events anywhere covering topics such as money, marketing, and management. And then, of course, access to capital, which is going to be something I talk about. So whether you need funding for your business, equipment, and so forth. And we are a resource center. So we provide resources to entrepreneurs who need to sustain and grow their businesses. So we provide all of that there at the Women's Business Center. And our services are really designed to help and empower small business owners just like Melissa to improve their financial positions, create jobs, as well as have a positive impact on their own local economy. So I'm very excited to be here. I am excited about the topic. It is so timely in the current environment that we're in. And so next, let me just kind of share with you some of the numbers. Many of you probably already know this and read about it, or you're up on this. But as you know, America is a very diverse nation. And the U.S. Census Bureau says 40% of the country's population currently identifies as non-white. Some researchers and estimates say that the minority population will become the majority population by 2044. So think about that as we go through this presentation. So this increasingly growing population has made and continue to make a significant economic impact in our economy. Yet the playing field is not leveled for minorities in entrepreneurship. So let me tell you what I'm going to talk to you about today. I will say this, I may not get through all the slides because I like this to be very interactive. So I will ask Melissa to share with me any questions or comments that come through the chat, because I do want this to be interactive and engaging and a conversation. Now, I won't have all the answers to the questions because I'm seeking answers as well. But today I'm going to share with you the state of minority entrepreneurship. We're going to discuss why the playing field isn't leveled. I'm going to give you, because everybody has to play their part, I'm going to give you some tips on what you can do to level the playing field and how access to capital for minorities is one of the key strategies to help close that gap. So on the next slide, let's look at some of these numbers here. You may have seen this before. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, their latest survey of entrepreneurs in 2016, there were 1.1 million minority-owned businesses with employees in the US. On average, that's 1.2 million in annual sales, and they have employed an average of 8 workers. In addition, the Minority Supplier Development Council states that minority businesses contribute about $49 billion in local, state, and federal tax revenues. These are some major numbers leading to a very positive economic impact, yet the playing field is not leveled. Why is that? On the next slide, why are there gaps? Why is it unequal compared to non-minority firms? So let's talk about that. And after this slide, I will pause because there might be some questions put or comments in the chat, but minorities face lower loan approval rates. Minority face biases from investors. So the investors, maybe you've gone to pitch your business or spoke to an investor and there's some biases there. Minorities, there's underrepresentation in government contracts, lower profitability and revenue growth, and poor representation in new business ventures. Now, think about this. If minorities started and owned businesses at the same rate as non-minority firms, if minorities had the same level playing field as non-minority firms, the U.S. would have more than 1 million additional employer businesses. So these are small businesses that actually employ people if the playing field was more level. In addition, it would add an extra 9.5 million jobs to this economy. Those are some very important numbers. Things that you want to think about. If you are an advocate and you're listening to this presentation, if you are an ally, so if you're a non-minority and you're listening to this presentation, this is some information to help you advocate and become an ally for minorities in entrepreneurship. So let's talk about some of the other factors on the next slide that also contributes to this. So I don't want to get us off the hook because we play a part in this as well, right? So some of these other contributing factors to this gap between non-minority firms and minority firms is that minorities tend to have lower credit scores or lack of credit. Oftentimes, minority firms choose to start non-employer type of companies. So what I mean by this is, and there's nothing wrong with that, but what I mean by this is these are companies that do not employ employees. They might use contractors. So this might be your solopreneurs, hairstylists, online retailers, health and wellness. So these are your only single person sole proprietorships, right? So this is some other reasons why these gaps exist. Human capital, and what I mean by human capital, that means industry skills. Oftentimes, and this is just across the board, any entrepreneur, when they start a business, often they start businesses based on the skills that they know. So maybe it was a corporate job you worked and you were in the finance department, and so now you're going to be a financial coach, right? However, in order to run, start, and sustain a successful business, you've got to have some human capital. And those are industry skills and knowledge to expand and grow your business. To grow and to sustain a business, you must acquire core business knowledge such as financial management, marketing, sales, operations, and employee management. How are you going to have a business and hire people and employ them if you don't know how to manage them? So it is up to you, it is up to me as well to increase our human capital. And then finally, another reason why this gap exists is access to capital or lack of access to capital. 16% of minority-owned firms report being negatively impacted by lack of access to or the cost of capital, compared to 10% of non-minority owned firms. So I'm going to pause right there and ask Melissa, are there any questions or comments in the chat that I can address before I move on?
Well, Tarsha, one of the things that you mentioned was, what we're doing. And there was a question in the chat that said, so what can we do about it? But you just addressed some of those points, which is, credit, managing skills, those skills that are going to propel us to have the kind of business that impacts our whole community versus ourselves. So that was one of the questions that was in the chat. Do you want to expand on that as well?
Yes, and I will expand on that if that person can hang tight for a few more slides, because I am going to give you what you can do. I'm giving you the state of where we are. I'm going to tell you why we're where we are, and then I'm going to show you what you can do. And if you're not in that minority group, I'm also going to share with you what you can do to support others. So hang tight, the information is coming. Are there any other questions or comments that I can address before moving on?
So one more comment also was, if you're thinking about starting a business, what can you start thinking about before you actually start developing your business that includes all these other moving parts?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely tell you to look at your credit. If you do not have established credit, start building credit. If your credit is low, you want to start improving your credit. So that's one thing. Second is your business acumen. So when I talked about human capital and not having the skills to sustain and grow a business, the second most popular reason that businesses fail under 5 years is because of poor management or leadership skills. It's because as entrepreneurs, we dive into this, whatever the reason may be. Maybe you got laid off from a job, or COVID has caused you not to be able to, I have personal experience from that with friends and family. So you might be thinking entrepreneurship is the way to go, but you got to do a self-assessment. Do I have the management skills? And if not, take some classes. I know Sir National has that Sir Mujer program for women that teaches entrepreneurship. Sir National has financial literacy programs. Tap into the resources with those organizations. But I feel like I'm jumping ahead because I'm actually going to talk about all of that. So let me just keep on going, and I think I'll answer a lot of the other questions. So I've given you some. And so if we could get to the next slide. So I share with you all of these stats of where we are, the lack of this, the lack of that, but you guess what? There are some minority firms figuring out how to close the gap. And so I'd like to introduce you to Tamiko Bailey. She is a proud U.S. Air Force service disabled veteran. She is a mother. She is an entrepreneur. And she juggled being pregnant with her third child while bidding on a government contract. Now, when I tell you us women, we know how to multitask. That is the ultimate. I don't know about you, Melissa, but I don't think I could have multitasked it that way. But she was bidding on a government contract while pregnant, with her third child and going through that process. teaching at a community college, and trying to support her family. She came to Live Fund, got a loan for $12,000 because she wanted to purchase a laptop, some furniture, create a website, and buy software for her business, which is Bailey's Premier Services. And so what she does is she supplies aircraft parts to the government and also to aviation companies. Because guess what? That's what she did when she was in the Air Force. She worked in the, I guess, parts department for the airplanes, right? And so that's what she transitioned to. However, today she has over 65 employees across 14 states, and nearly 90% of the employees she employs are military veterans. Talk about some girl power. I just wanted to give you that break because there is hope. If you are serious about starting and growing your business and closing that gap. So speaking of ladies, on the next slide, I want to talk more about girl power. Women have always played a very vital role in our economy. So if you are a female entrepreneur and you're in that chat room, I want you to type in there, girl power. So, you know, women of color account for about 47% of the woman-owned firms in this country. So 47% of the firms in this country are owned by women of color. Women of color employ 2.2 million people. Girls, ladies, we are the bomb. We are creating jobs. We're creating economic wealth. Women of color generate 386 billion, that's with a B, in revenue. And the business growth for women of color grew by 163% in 1 year. Those are some fantastic stats. So if you are a female of color, this is the fastest growing category of new businesses started. Why is this? Because of higher unemployment rates in this category of minority women. Long-term unemployment is the reason why these numbers are so fantastic, and a much greater gender and racial pay gap led women of color to starting these businesses. So if you're saying, why are these numbers looking like this? These numbers look fantastic. Well, the numbers look fantastic, but it's because of a negative reason. And that's the wage gap, gender inequality. So you know what we said? We said, forget it. I'm smart. I can do this. I can start my own company. So those numbers are very promising, and it shows that if you are a woman, particularly a minority woman, your future looks bright as an entrepreneur. However, statistics do say women are half as likely as men to own employer businesses. So why is this? Because some women want to maintain a healthy work-life balance. So more women tend to start lifestyle businesses that they can easily juggle and manage, and don't have aspirations of growing a huge business. But there is a way to close the gap. And so let's go to the next slide. We're going to start talking about how we can close this gap. So that person that asked that question, I hope you're still there. So let's close the gap so that we can create jobs, so we can create wealth and increase our economic impact. And so how are we going to do that on the next slide? Well, some of the factors causing the disparity in access to capital, some of the things that we can do to close the gap is seek assistance from community organizations. So I already mentioned that, right? Community organizations I'll say it again, Sir National, they have financial literacy programs, Sir Mujer, their entrepreneurship training for women. Also, you want to seek assistance from CDFIs. So if somebody can put that in the chat for me, Community Development Financial Institution. Community Development Financial Institution. The website you want to check out, if someone can put that in the chat for me, is cdfi.org. cdfi.org. These are nonprofit financial institutions. That's what LiveFund is. We are a CDFI, and these CDFIs provide affordable access to loans. We provide business training. We provide mentoring. We provide credit counseling and debt management. All of those things on that previous slide that said, here's why there's a gap, credit, lack of human capital. Here is how you close the gap. But you have to take the step. You have to invest in yourself and not expect someone to invest in you. You got to show that you are putting some skin in the game. Seek mentorship. Right before this webinar, I was on another webinar as a listener, not as a speaker, and they were talking about how in order for women to get into leadership roles, they need to have mentors. And I'm saying for all minorities, if you are trying to grow your business, scale your business, start a business, seek mentorship, because they can give you constructive feedback, they can give you guidance, and they can share with you information that you might not have access to. Now, let me tell you, I will be completely honest with you. Throughout my professional career, majority of my mentors, and I've only had about 5 throughout my professional career, 4 out of those 5 mentors have been white men. 2 out of the 4, I did not seek them out directly. For some reason, they sought after me, but became my mentor. So I say that, yes, have a mentor, someone that looks like you, but you want to have a mentor that's someone that doesn't look like you as well. So you want to have that type of perspective. How do you close this gap? What do you do, the part that you play? Again, back to that business education. So I won't talk about that again. But in order to level the playing field, minority owners need to learn how to play the field. So you can't get on the field and you don't even know the gameplay. You don't have the skills, right? So you gotta learn how to play the field. So educate yourself on those core business functions around starting and growing a business. Now, for those of you who are already in business, and you may have been in business for a while now, you may have been on this roller coaster with your profits, and you're ready to go after larger revenue generating opportunities. One way to do that is by becoming minority certified. By doing so, you can do business with corporations, local government, state government, and federal government entities. Why is this important? Because these entities, they have set asides. They have set aside a percentage of their spending to ensure that they allocate those funds to spend with women and minority-owned firms. So they're looking to spend money with people like you and me that are business owners. And on the screen, you'll see 3 organizations in which you can tap into. Now, there might be others in your state and in your area, but these 3 are national organizations. The SBA is Small Business Administration. That's a federal agency, and they have a woman-owned small business certification. These are some steps that you can take yourself to help close the gap. So I'm going to pause there to see if there are any questions in the chat.
Tarsha, we do not have any questions at this time, but I did want to mention something because you spoke about something really important that often I think we overlook or we think we're too busy to think about, and that's mentorship. We talk often on all our webinars, our share webinars, about mentorship for students, for high school students that are going into college. But we forget that not just students need mentors, but also us, adults that are trying to change our careers or trying to change the way that we do business, and we can't do it by ourselves. So it is very important for us to find mentors. Can you give some ideas to our audience of where they can find mentors? I know the SBA does have a mentorship program. Does Live Fund have a mentorship program as well?
Absolutely. And if you want to put in the chat, livefund.com is our website. You can go there. Again, we serve about 12 to 13 different states. But when you come to an organization like Live Fund, you are going to get connected. We don't call we call ours advisors, business advisors, but they're the same as mentors. So you're going to get connected with someone who has business experience, entrepreneur experience, and knowledge, and they're going to guide you. They're going to support you. So I'm going to tell you what I learned from this other webinar I was on. And the lady, and I can't remember her name, but she said you need to build your personal board of directors. And I'm not taking credit for this, this other lady said it. Your personal board of directors are basically your mentors, your sponsors, and your advocates. So your mentor is going to be that sounding board, someone who's going to give you advice and guidance. That sponsor is going to be the person who opens up the door for you and let you in, or pull up a chair so you can have a seat at the table. And then that advocate is the one who's going to stand behind you, stand beside you, or even stand before you and speak up on your behalf. So I think it's really critical as minorities in business, minorities in leadership, that you have your own personal board of directors.
Sorry, I was muted. But that is not the first time that I've heard that. I've also heard that before, and I do take that into account. Now, somebody just asked a question that's very important, because I think that, whatever age you may be, you feel that your mentor should be older than you. But I have found that sometimes that is not the case. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's not necessarily the case. I've had one of my mentors were pretty much the same age, give or take a few months. So what you're looking for is a mentor that may have knowledge and skill that you don't, right? So if that younger person has knowledge of something or skills in a certain area, that means they have more knowledge and skills than you do. So that person would make a great mentor.
Thank you, Tarsha. That was all the comments that we had at this moment.
All right, awesome. So we're gonna move on to the next slide, which is, so we've been talking, I've talked about the why the gap, talked about what you can do to close the gap. Now, this is more for those allies and advocates. Maybe you don't necessarily fall into the category of a minority, or maybe you are a minority, but you are more successful than some of the other minorities. Mentor another person. So if you've already made it, reach back and mentor someone. I would also say to our allies and advocates, invest in women-owned businesses. Invest in minority-owned businesses. You can do so through crowdfunding platforms like iFund Women, Kickstarter, Indiegogo. Look for opportunities to support women and minority-owned businesses by buying from them. Small Business Saturday is coming up. Here's your opportunity to buy from a woman-owned or minority-owned firm. So if you are in a financial position to be an investor, I urge you and your fellow friends and family members to seek out opportunities to mentor and invest in minority-owned firms. So when you do, when you proactively seek out these firms and you purchase their products and services, here's what you're doing. You're helping them create more jobs. You're building equity in the business. You're helping them to leverage funds to obtain financing to grow their business. When you do so, it helps them demonstrate traction and sales growth to potential investors, and it builds credibility and legitimacy of the business. So here's what we all can do. If you're a non-minority, or even if you're a minority and you want to take actions to close the gap, these are some steps that you can take. And so we talked about access to capital a little bit. And so I want to jump into that on the next slide. You know, one of the top reasons that businesses fail is because they're poorly funded. And we already saw that minorities tend to not get funding because of the poor credit, lower revenue and profit. So it doesn't look favorable to a bank. And honestly, some banks see some firms that are located in underrepresented communities as unbankable because of credit scores or low profits. And oftentimes, if you don't have receipts or revenues of 500,000, a bank or a financial institution is just not going to lend to you. So minority-owned small businesses face more financial challenges and funding gaps than non-minority firms. And so here's ways that you can close that gap. Access to capital. It's going to improve the profitability of a small business. Most entrepreneurs that seek funding, they do so via personal savings or family savings. Minorities or small businesses of color tend to use credit cards, while non-minority firms tend to seek bank loans or lines of credit. So you want to have a good keep good financial records. So if you're in business, thinking about starting a business, these are things you want to put on your radar. Keep good records to show profitable performance. We coach our clients. We actually have a financial coach on staff that we contract, and some of our clients can set appointments and sit one-on-one with that individual to get help with their financial statements and projections. You want to have a strong management team and business plan. If you're trying to get money from a lender and your management team doesn't have the skills, the knowledge, or the expertise, that's a high risk for a lender or financial institution. They may not want to take that risk because you haven't proved that you have a strong plan or management team behind your business. And if you haven't established a relationship with your banker, you want to make sure you do so. You've heard that before. Establishing a relationship with your banker is very important to your ability to access capital, as well as understanding the process. So I actually want to move on to the next slide. And this chart here, it's just, again, just to demonstrate to you that credit cards and or non-external financing is usually what is used by minority firms compared to non-minority firms. And on the next slide, we're going to talk about why. Why is that? So there are a few things internally that we have to deal with. Minorities are less likely to apply for a loan because of fear of rejection, or they think that they won't get approved by a lender. That's why you want to establish a relationship with your banker. I know right now you can't go inside the bank, but you can actually schedule phone calls with your banker. So that, and virtual meetings with your banker. When raising funding, sometimes they ask for less. So they don't ask for it because of lack of confidence. You need 50,000 and you shoot low ball and you ask for 20. But 20 isn't going to help you get all the equipment, get the inventory that you need. Also, oftentimes they don't want to incur more debt. And so these are some of the reasons, the internal reasons. So how do you overcome that? You got to have a different kind of mindset. So I have a poll. Let's see if we can pull up this poll next. Do we have the poll to pull up? If not, okay. So the question is, what are your general feelings about borrowing money? I want you to put that in the chat. What are your general feelings about borrowing money? And if Melissa can share.
I am looking over Tarsha. Now, you know, and I don't know what it's like in other cultures, but in the Latino culture, you know, borrowing money sometimes can be very hard, especially when it's from family. And so that's an underlying factor for us. And also, you know, if you're a parent, you know, you're borrowing money, sometimes you feel inadequate, you know, you're not being able to provide. So that can also be a factor for some of us that are looking at borrowing money but want to do it on our own. We had to, in our business, we had to go through that same mindset of, it's not really borrowing money, it's so that, you know, you can get your business up and running.
Yeah. So, and it's all about a different kind of mindset. Absolutely. Now, yes, there's a sensitive situation when borrowing money from friends and family, because they are friends and family. These are people you're going to have to see often. You have, you know, they're part of your life. And if things don't go well or you're unable to pay them back, yes, that could cause problems.
So I just wanted to read to you some of the comments that are coming in the chat and about borrowing money. And some people have mentioned fear of rejection, feeling not worthy to ask, unable to pay back, not good. Borrowing money in my culture is a sign of weakness. They're scared. I don't like to owe anyone any money. From family, it's usually difficult. So what can you say about the comments that have come in?
Yeah. So with consumer debt, you are borrowing money to pay for something without any change in your earning. So when you get a car, you get a house. Well, a house is a good investment, but when you get a car or, you know, something like that, and you put, you know, that's a debt that you have, it's not changing your earning potential unless you're going to be selling these cars, right? But when you look at business debt, you're borrowing money to purchase assets that's going to help you increase your earning potential. So it's a mindset shift. You have to think about, yes, this is debt. I don't want to incur the debt. I don't want to take the risk, but you can't afford not to take the risk because you're not going to grow if you don't. So think of it as, I'm increasing my earning potential by taking out this debt. Now, not everybody needs to think that way because everybody's situation is different. Some people need to focus on their credit score and become financially sound. If you're not ready to take on debt and you don't have responsible debt management skills, do not take out debt. Get the training and the education that you need so that you can be responsible with your debt management. So let's go to the next slide. So I already talked about changing your mindset. I go again, here at the Women's Business Center, we talk about this all the time. Most small business owners have a negative relationship when it comes to money. It's a stressor. Those same things, fear of rejection. I feel like I'm not worthy of it. You are a business owner. You have to build self-confidence in yourself, your skills, and the product or services that you offer, because if you are not confident in those areas, you're not going to be confident in asking for what you need to grow your business and to succeed. And many of us was taught, and I was taught this, if you don't have cash in your pocket, don't buy it. Type me in the chat box if that was you, because that definitely was me. I mean, my grandfather, who practically raised me for most of my life, he always told me to buy a cash car and he would go out with me. So that's the way I was taught. So if you was raised that way, it is gonna be harder. So that may apply, that mindset applies as a consumer, but not as a business owner. And you have to change the way you think about that to leverage it for your own benefit. And then, so I do want to address women. So ladies, we have to start talking more about money in our circle of friends and family. Women are less confident when it comes to, most women are less confident when it comes to talking about money. So this is something that we can learn from men, because men are constantly talking about business in their social circles. And so when you get comfortable about talking about money, doors are going to open up for investments into your business, and it will be economically beneficial to your relationships. Any other questions, Melissa?
Not at this time. People are still commenting about borrowing money, so I think that touched a lot of nerves out there in getting that conversation going. But you're right, as a female myself, female business owner myself, that was probably the hardest part of starting the business and developing, growing the business, was having that conversation over and over and over, and just being conscious of what comes in, what goes out. Because I think that in any other realm, it wouldn't be as important, but when you have a business, it is quite important. So that conversation is always there.
Yeah. Absolutely. It is scary because we're thinking, how am I going to pay this back? And for women, we tend to put others before ourselves. So we're thinking, oh, I'm taking money from my kids' college fund, or I won't be able to pay for their soccer or dance lessons. But you really got to think about how access to capital is going to increase a business's longevity, profitability, and overall success. So next, hopefully this information on the next slide will help boost your confidence in, and again, getting access to capital isn't the right move for everyone, but lack of capital results in lower revenue. So going back to why there's this gap, because lower revenue, minorities tend to generate lower revenue. Why? Because we're afraid to get access to capital, to buy the equipment, to hire the contractor, to hire the employees so that we can take on bigger projects, which means we're going to take home less pay. Owners that are sufficiently capitalized realize a 74% success rate in their business. I'm not making this stuff up. It's a research, and I can share the link there. and compared to 30% survival rate overall. Commercial loan borrowers experienced 72.9% sales growth compared to 41% of non-borrowers. So I'm not saying, these numbers are not saying that you can't succeed if you don't take out a loan or that you don't get any kind of financing. You definitely can, and people have done it all the time. It depends on where you're trying to go, what your goals are, and what you would like to accomplish. So on the next slide, I want to talk about why this matters. Businesses that have sufficient capital increase their own earning power and make a positive impact in their local communities. You see there, this is only speaking for Lift Fund. When our borrowers, so we don't just give money to people, we provide training, we provide coaching, we walk you through the whole process. I'm going to go over quick. I don't know, I think I'm running out of time, but I do want to talk about those 5 C's of credit because that is really, really important. So let's skip to the next slide, and the next one after that one. Okay. So with consumer debt, we talked about it before. You're borrowing money to pay something that is not going to change your earning potential. But when you have business debt, the focus is, hey, I'm getting money. I have to get this money in order to increase my revenue, right? So you're trying to increase your earning potential. In this scenario, and hopefully this scenario is helpful to someone, you see that she takes out a $30,000 loan for her business to hire a web developer because, one, she's a solopreneur and she's trying to do all these websites herself. So all she can do is 3 a month and bring in $18,000. And after expenses is over, she's netting $13,000. But because she takes out this loan, she's able to hire another developer. That means you have 2 sets of hands instead of 1. So now she can take on more clients. She's increased her revenue. Yes, she has increased her debt, but she's increased her revenue to cover the debt, which is her loan payment. And now her net profits are $43,200. And this is a real scenario of a client of Lift Fund. But I wanted to share that with you because you got to work the numbers. You got to have a mentor or advisor. You want to sit down with your banker, someone who can do these numbers for you to see what the revenue potential is.
And Tarsha, I know, you mentioned we were running out of time, but I really do think that this slide right here can speak to a lot of people. And I'm glad that you showed this to us because while yes, a lot of people think if they're starting their business and they also have a full-time job, they think, oh, well, I can only do this for this amount of time because I'm doing both. But you're right, if they actually took out a loan and they invested more in their business, then they wouldn't have to work 2 jobs and they would still make the money to sustain themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just training, retraining. I mean, in our cultures, it's the same thing. It's like, hey, I just got to pick up this extra job so that I can make this extra money, but not thinking that, hey, there's other ways to finance your business. And if you don't want to take out debt, another option is a line of credit. I actually love a line of credit. So specifically for those that are a little fearful of taking that risk, a line of credit means that if you qualify for it, let's say you might get qualified for a $10,000 line of credit, but you only use $5,000. So that means you have $5,000 left to use, but you're only paying back what you've used. So you're not paying back $10,000. The interest and payments are based on what you are using. So a line of credit might be a more safer and less risky option for those business owners who are still not comfortable taking on that type of debt.
Now, Tarsha, I wasn't sure if you wanted to continue with the presentation or if you wanted to take any questions at this time. I will leave that up to you. We have a few minutes left.
Let me do this. If you can go to skip to the next one, because this last piece I feel like is right here, 5C. So before I end the whole conversation, it's critical that you understand the 5 C's of credit. This is what most all lenders are looking at. Do you have the character? Meaning, are you financially responsible? Are you good at debt management? Capacity. Do you have capacity? They're looking at debt to income ratio. Do you have enough room to add on more debt? If your debt to income ratio is over 43%, then maybe a line of credit might be better. Capital. What kind of skin are you putting into the game? So somebody who wants to give you money or invest in your company, they want to see what you have done. So that means, how much have you spent getting the business started? What kind of capital injection have you put into your business? And then collateral. You can get unsecured loans. They tend to have higher interest rates, but in order for a lender to take the risk, they want to have some type of collateral, and they want that collateral to equal the value of the loan. And then finally are the conditions. What are you going to use the money for? Do you have a strong business plan? Can you effectively communicate to a lender and investor what the money is going to be used for? So I wanted to make sure I covered those before we open it up for additional questions.
Thank you, Tarsha. Now, somebody's asking here in the chat if you can talk a little bit more about these 5 C's of credit, and what are they just for business? Are we talking personal finances as well?
Yeah, this is all about entrepreneurship. So all for businesses. However, if you are getting a personal loan, you probably won't need any collateral. They're not going to ask you, they might ask for you to look at your debt to income ratio. So they are going to look at that. They're going to look at character. So some of this does apply to personal, but when you are seeking debt financing for your business, you want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of what your status is in each of these areas. And again, if you go to that cdfi.org website, look for a CDFI in your area. Most all CDFIs provide counseling on the 5 C's of credit. If you're located in the state of Texas, you can reach out to us, liftfund.com, and we can walk you through that based on your own situation.
Thank you, Tarsha. At this time, we will be taking questions from all of our audience. If anybody has any comments or any further questions about anything that Tarsha has talked about this afternoon, we would greatly appreciate it if you could share that with us in the chat. And for you, Tarsha, thank you so much. I love this topic because it's something that isn't talked about often, and it is very important for our community, not just for women entrepreneurs, but also minority-owned businesses. Now, you touched on something really important early on in your presentation, and that was Small Business Saturday and how we can contribute to small businesses in our community. Can you talk a little bit more about that and the impact that it has for us as consumers to support the businesses in our community?
Yes, you've always heard small businesses are the economic drivers for this economy. Of course, COVID, especially for minority businesses, there was a statistic that said that 40% of minority, in that research, it was Hispanic and African American businesses closed as a result of COVID. So now is the time that we try to support these businesses that are still open and just hanging at a thread, because we don't know. COVID cases are still going up. We don't know what's going on in the economy, but November 28th is the day that you can shop a small business owner, seek out your minority chambers of commerces, identify businesses that you can shop with. Lift Fund has an initiative called Lift, L-I-F-T, Small Business. And we are putting together a website of all of our clients where we can support them on Small Business Saturday.
Thank you, Tarsha. And we would love to join you guys in doing that. You know, we have a slew of small business owners that we support ourselves. And please, if you guys have any questions about that, please reach out to Lift Fund or reach out to Sun Mujer here at Sarah National, and we would love to give you more information about that. And just one last tidbit before we leave, Tarsha, I know that you're a business owner yourself and that you normally talk about marketing, and that's something that we didn't talk about today. Can you share a little bit with our audience about the importance of marketing, especially during COVID, if you're a minority-owned business?
Yeah, definitely. Digital marketing. I mean, think about it. All of us are online right now, right? We meet online. We work online. We're buying our groceries more online. So if you've not ever bought groceries online, this probably was the first time you ever did it. The challenge is that during this shutdown, some of the businesses did not have a robust online presence. So digital marketing is where it's at. You want to set aside in your marketing budget for social media ads, whether it's Facebook ads. You want to optimize your website to make sure that people can find you. You want to set up your Google My Business page. It's free to set up. You want to start engaging more with your customers and clients. I don't know about you, but I get an ad almost every day from TikTok, TikTok for business. So definitely you want to make a shift. So reallocate some of those marketing, some of that budget into digital marketing strategies.
Thank you for that advice, Tarsha. And like I said earlier, we thank you again for sharing your time and your dedication to our small business community, whether it be women, whether it be minority-owned businesses. We thank you all from here at SARE.